Happy Super Bowl Sunday to you webheads. Welcome to Comic Book Corner 2.0. I'm Mike Spider Slayer. This is another episode of After the Pool, where I take all the comic books that I read for the current comic book week and see if they lived up to the hype. Plus, I will give you my top 5 comics of the week. First book we're going to be talking about today is Batman. This is issue 132, as we get to see Chip Zdarsky bring Batman into a different Earth. This arc is nowhere near as good, in my opinion, as the Failsafe story arc, but in some ways it does tie into everything that he's been doing. Now, since Bruce Wayne has been in this Earth, we get to see different versions of characters that we have, known in love in Gotham. They're just tweaked or changed just ever so slightly. We get different versions of like Red Hood, we get different versions of Bane and Harvey Dent and Selina Kyle, and in this comic book we wind up getting to see Alfred in here. So Alfred is alive, so I'm kind of thinking, well, does Chip Zdarsky decide to have Bruce Wayne bring this version of Alfred back to the main Earth? Would you want to see that? Let me know in the comments below. We also get to see a Venom-upped version of Punchline in this book, which was kind of comical as well. And Bruce Wayne has been going through all kinds of crazy stuff. He's hallucinating, he's fallen through like huge buildings, and he has no Batman suit on him, and he's still alive, which I find hysterical. But it's Batman, he can survive anything. The backup story is actually well connected to everything that's going on in the main book, so I actually feel that the backup story with Tim Drake is actually kind of worth it. And yeah, we'll see what happens with Batman. Not nearly as good as that Failsafe stuff. I just wish Chip Zdarsky did something different when it came to, Bruce Wayne just going to a different Earth. Just nothing outside of the box here. Next book we're going to be talking about is Sin of Sinister spin-off book. This is Storm and the Brotherhood of Mutants. So Storm has gathered all of these remaining mutants that have been around in Morocco and created this Brotherhood of Mutants to stop Sinister. So they have to go to his lab and destroy all of the Moira McTaggart clones to stop like all this, resurrection protocol nonsense that's been going on, because Sinister has actually put his DNA in those resurrection protocols. So now all mutants have a little sliver of Sinister DNA, and they're slowly reshaping the Earth in his imagination. Storm has been outcasted in Morocco, and again, she has formed a team to try to stop him. The artwork is actually really good by Paco Mandina, and I felt that this book was definitely worthy of its purchase, as it felt like a solid tie-in of a mutant who's trying to get revenge on Sinister and stop his evil plans. We get a cast of characters by the name of Cora, WizKid, Ironfire, Quick, and also Mystique is in this comic as well. There is a traitor amongst the group, and we find that out at the end of this issue. This is actually definitely worth the read if you're trying to get the full effect of Sins of Sinister. So far, I feel we're 1 for 1 when it comes to these tie-ins. Amazing Spider-Man, issue 19. We're coming off the pages of the dark web, and let me tell you, this is a palate cleanser, because you're getting away from all that nonsense, and you're getting a team up here with Spider-Man and Felicia. Now, the beginning of this book was actually kind of promising, as you get to see these two characters actually team up with each other, and then they wind up going on a vacation with each other. The book does get very awkward as they come across this, they go to this same hotel, this same ski lodge, and they come across Paul and MJ. The awkwardness was very weird, right? And then when you get towards the middle and the end of this issue, it definitely falls off a cliff, and we wind up getting to see White Rabbit team up with a bunch of these rich people that are impersonating themselves being the Sinister Six, and they wind up are going to use these weapons to sell them to Tombstone. Well, one of their own winds up getting murdered in the comic book, and then all of a sudden they're holding responsible Cat and Spider-Man, right? The artwork I felt was good at times, but then at other times it felt incomplete. I've seen better artwork from Terry Dodson. This book was definitely better than Dark Web, but nowhere near the standard of an Amazing Spider-Man title. It's actually kind of sad because this was my least favorite Spider book of the week. So I'm a huge fan of the show, and so is my daughter, so I decided to pick up Stranger Things. This is issue 1 of 4, The Tales from Hawkins. So I wanted to see what spin-off stories this book had to offer and if it was going to deal with some of the supporting cast members. However, in this first issue, I was a little bit disappointed because it dealt with not just like B-list supporting cast characters, but like D-list supporting cast characters. And you would think the first issue would deal with some people that are a little bit more important to some random hunters that have gone missing inside the Upside Down. That's about it. You get to see them hunt, drink some beers, come across some, wildlife that was destroyed by a demo dog, and yeah, they both get killed, and that's about it, man. There was nothing really special about this comic book to sit there and go, you know what? I'm going to buy an issue 2 of this to see what the next story is entail for. Even my daughter would be bored with this comic book and be like, I don't care about these hunters. So yeah, I think I'm gonna pass on the second issue. So I really wasn't gonna pick this book up, but I'm actually a fan of the Bishop character, and this is Bishop War College issue 1. I feel like I was the only one who actually somewhat liked this issue, but I just want to let you guys know this did not blow me out of the water. I felt like for a first issue it was average, and I love the message that Bishop was portraying to his younger students, which was, there's no break in war. You guys are asking me for break, relax time, and war could go on forever. You never know when it's over. You never know when you're going to win. You never know when you're going to lose, and you never know when you could lose your life. So he is a very tough drill sergeant, and he winds up getting his ass kind of handed to him by Danny Moonstar in this book, and he kind of reflects on himself and he goes, you know what, not everyone is me. Maybe I am too hard. So he decides to, have another training day with these recruits, and we come across Andreas von Stucker. They're the enemies here, and they're attacking Krakoa. Okay, so with a little help from Tempo, Bishop says, I want one more day with these recruits. Let's slow down the day and let's make the best of it. So everything starts off the way that it's going to happen, and the next thing you wind up seeing is that she loses control of her powers. Bishop winds up going to some different Earth where the X-Men are either different versions of himself or a black team. So I'm not sure exactly where we're going with that, but it fell flat at the end because it's like you knew that Bishop was going to run into these characters. I would have loved if the cover didn't give away that. So when you came across these characters at the end, you're kind of like, who are these guys, But I don't know. I feel like the best issue was probably going to be this issue. I have a feeling it's going to kind of fall flat from there. Prove me wrong. I'm hoping that it's going to be good, but yeah, we'll see where it goes. But again, guys, it didn't blow me out of the water. I just didn't think it was the worst thing I ever read either. Alright guys, another book that I've been really enjoying, and I want to say this is probably just right outside that top 5 this week, and this goes to The Flash, issue 792, The 1 Minute War. This is part 3. This event has been really a lot of fun as I am jumping on The Flash for the first time in quite a long time. I really enjoy all the character interactions, whether it's with the kids or Barry and Wally, and even the character emotions that's going on right now with Iris, how she is supposedly dead, but we know she's not dead, right? And I love seeing the plan come in place when it comes to all the characters on trying to get a hold or stop this faction or fraction or whatever it is that they're called that are trying to overtake the Earth. In this issue, we also get to see the kids teaming up with each other because they're stealing this car, and we get to see more of this like Hunter character as they interact with them as well. but our heroes come across the car that they stole, and inside are superheroes that are frozen because they don't have anything to deal with this speed force. And so at the end of that cliffhanger, you're like, man, that's actually pretty cool. And that's what's so good about the Flash right now, man. I've said it before, it reminds me of a simpler time in comic books where you have these major events or story arcs that takes place within the main story itself or the main comic itself. It doesn't cross over with anything, and it still has, you know, characters from other books inside, and I really love that, and that's what happened in this issue, and I can't wait for part 4, man. This is great stuff for me. Okay, so the next book we're talking about is a little bit of a horror story, a little bit of a suspense and mystery. This is The Harrower. This is issue 1 from Boom Studios. This is written by Justin Jordan, and this book was actually pretty cool. It took me a couple times to get through it, but after I read it the second time, I appreciated it more. The one thing, though, that I didn't really like so much about the book was the artwork, as this is supposed to be a darker book, but it just didn't feel dark because of the color choices between these pinks and yellows and, you know, all that stuff. Even the Harrower himself, even though he's a little dark, he even has got this pink face going on. And I'm kind of like, what's going on there, you know? But in this comic book, it's basically about this myth, this legend about this creature or this supernatural being by the Harrower. It's been in this town for years. Halloween is coming up. People get on edge because there's been things in the past that have stirred up. And then we get a cast of characters. They're a bunch of high school students. They're about to get ready to go to a party. You know, they get into an accident because their tire goes flat. They split up. Some go to the party. Some are looking for help to try to fix the car. Well, something very bad happens at the end of the issue where it leads to become a very dark moment. And we get to see one of the cast of characters betray the high school students that worships this Harrower being, and he wants to serve the creature. Very interesting. I really enjoyed the comic. Like I said, it's just the artwork takes you out of it a little bit. They just have this thing going on with pink and yellow stuff. It's even here, right here on the cover, right? But if you're looking for a darker toned book and a little bit scarier, this is what Boom does best. So check out Harrower issue 1. So here we go. Daredevil, this is issue 8. Remember, I've told you in weeks past where you get Daredevil and it's slow and it's slow and it's slow, and then all of a sudden it builds up and you get that action-packed issue, and it's that issue that's the issue that hooks you going forward when it comes to the story arc or the story in general. Yeah, Daredevil issue 8, that's it. This is the one that hooks you up, right? Because you get, right from the start, you get this beautiful artwork by Marco Cicchetto. And you get to see all this action that's taking place between Punisher's people and Daredevil's people and how to stop the Punisher. I mean, this action just was nonstop. It was so badass all the way through the comic book. And I was just like, oh my God, it does not stop. Daredevil and his people have to rescue this kid. They're trying to stop the Punisher at the same time. And when you read this book, you see that our heroes, which is Elektra and Daredevil, they wind up getting their asses handed to him by Frank Castle, and we find out now that our Earth's mightiest heroes, the Avengers and everybody else, are against Daredevil and Elektra because they released super villains. They don't agree with their methods, and now you know who's next that's coming into play with this comic book, who's going to help stop them. Well, it's going to be none other than yours truly, the webhead himself, which is Spider-Man. Isn't it funny how Spider-Man seems to be everywhere and he's written perfect everywhere else except in his own damn comic book? That's messed up right there. And here we go. We got Goblin. This is issue 4. Just a wonderful comic book here, guys, when it comes to Norman Osborn and him dealing with his psyche, his redemption story. Should he be good? Should he be evil? And in this book, it's all about Norman Osborn trying to I guess, help rehabilitate the Jack-o'-lantern, right? He feels like, you know what, I'm trying to be on the straight and narrow. I'm trying to not feel guilty. I'm trying to help people now. And, you know, I set the Jack-o'-lantern up with a therapist to help him with his, you know, everyday life. And as the reader, you feel like everything's going to be good and great. And that's not the case. Jack-o'-lantern shows up in a freaking goddamn park and he blows everybody up. I mean, that is some pretty dark and sick and twisted stuff. And the person that's behind it is the Queen Goblin herself. And she was posing as the actual therapist the whole time. And she's messing with Norman Osborn. And she wants to give those sins back to him so he can become the Green Goblin once again. So good, man. I love this book. Again, it's another Spider-Man spin-off story that's written by better than the main book itself. And it's written by Christopher Cantwell. So if you've been on the fence or saying, oh, Gold Goblin is going to be a Cheese Whiz book, not the case, guys. Really great stuff here. We are now on the second issue of Joe Fixit, Spider-Man in this comic book, as he is gambling against Joe Fixit. Awesome book here as we get to see this version of Hulk, who is a security guy for a mob boss, and the Kingpin wants to take over this casino. Well, you know what? No matter what's going to go on with Joe Fixit, he's not going to stop himself from having a good time with the ladies. He invites Spider-Man to the penthouse to enjoy himself as well. And Peter wants nothing to do with it. And it's so hilarious, all this stuff that happens. Well, since Kingpin got his ass beat in the last issue, he winds up coming up with this nerve agent gas that can trigger Joe Fixit into becoming evil and destroying the entire casino. And that's what happens. You wind up seeing Kingpin ask him one last time, hey, do you want to join me? I'll pay you double. And he's like, hell no. He releases that agent on him, and then you just see Joe Fixit go balls to the walls and destroy the entire casino. And Spider-Man is now tasked to try to stop him at the end of the day. Such a great Spider-Man book. Let me tell you, guys. Kingpin is in this. Like I said, Joe Fixit is in this. And this is written by Peter David. If you love the classic version of these characters, the way they were written back in the day, this is going to be the comic book for you. All right, guys, here we go. Top 5, number 5, Secret Invasion. Issue 4, the penultimate issue, written by Ryan North. This thing has gone so far under the radar because people are like, Secret Invasion, I read this before, but it's not a worldwide, monumental Marvel event. It's just a mini-series that only really has to do with two people, Maria Hill and Tony Stark. And it was the Skrulls' plan this entire time to pit Maria Hill and Tony Stark against each other, which was actually a brilliant plan. You get to see this entire issue with them fighting against each other. Great artwork within the pages of this comic book. You wind up getting to see Maria Hill wear some War Machine armor, which was great as well. And by the time you wind up getting to the end of this issue, you wind up getting to see the whole plan that happened in place. Now it's going to be up to Maria Hill and Tony Stark and somehow Nick Fury to try to stop these Skrulls. Great stuff, man. This is something that you're going to want to read. If you haven't read it yet, maybe in trade. Great story. Number 4, we have the Avengers War Across Time issue 2. So I was talking about, you know, the way comics used to be written. If you're fans of those type of comics and you don't like the modern day stuff right now, the way these characters are currently written right now, Marvel seems to be coming out with more and more of these comic books, which is actually good because then it acquires to all different types of readers. And again, the Avengers War Across Time has to deal with the Silver Age Avengers, where they are trying to find Kang, and if they don't find him, Kang is basically going to take over the world. We deal with all these different types of characters, from characters that were introduced in the past. We even get this, like, the mail guy from back in the day. I guess his name, what is his name? Willie Lumpkin, who delivers the mail to Avengers Tower. So great. And all the characters, the way they interact with each other is the way they were written in the Silver Age. Just all their powers, just the way the book is colored, the way they are drawn. It's just awesome, man. It just brings you back to a simpler time. We even get to see Patsy Walker in this comic when she was, like, first introduced. I love Janet in this comic. She's just like this little flirt. And we get to see Thor do battle against the, I guess, the dwarf who actually Forge Mjolnir, and I think that's who the character that it was that we seen him fight against. And he's in Midgard, and he doesn't know where he's at. He blames Thor for being summoned here. His name is Sindri, and oh my god, it's so good. It's just a simpler time. It's like reading Silver Age comic books, but without all the crazy and heavy dialogue that Silver Age comic books had, because they explained everything that happened in the comic book. Here, they don't explain everything, they just tell the story. So it's almost like modern day storytelling, but with that Silver Age goodness inside of it. Great book overall. Love this. I can't believe I would love it as much as I did. Who is the thought? Because I wasn't even going to pick up issue 1 originally. Top 3 now. We have Ghost Rider issue 11. This book has been one of my favorite comic books ever since it came out. Benjamin Percy is the writer of this book, and we got Dave Watcher who does the artwork in this series as well. It's so dark, it's so gruesome, it's so gory. There's a lot of things going right for this comic book. It even gives me Hellraiser vibes into it, where we get to see this dream sequence that Johnny Blaze is actually happening. And the other thing that's going to go on in this comic book is that we're going to get Danny Ketch, who's going to make his appearance in the next issue of this. This is a good jumping on point. This is a new story arc for the character. We get to see him team up with Talia Warroad, I think is her name, and she is a love interest for Johnny in this series as well. They both have supernatural abilities. Their mission is to stop the supernatural dark beings from taking over the world, and they have been doing things following this map that has this like secret pentagram on it, and now they're headed to the most haunted place of all, which is Georgia. In the meantime, Johnny Blaze is dealing with this bike that he has had that was once exhaust, and it's still giving off like demonic vibes. It's trying to possess him or trying to take over all the things that he cares about. And so this issue was really about him letting go of that past, and that's basically what you saw happened in this issue, and him making a decision between the person that he cares about or between this crazy demonic bike, which was awesome. And like I said, at the end of this issue, we see them make their way towards Georgia, which is the most haunted place. I love the creepy vibes this book gives. I love the team up between these two characters. They really work. It doesn't overwhelm you with a ton of different characters. It's just, this book, it is what it is, and it's awesome. I definitely suggest Ghost Rider. I've never been a Ghost Rider fan in my entire life. I always thought he was a cool character, but I just never got into the stories. And the way this is written, the pacing is great. I love the action, and I love the way Johnny Blaze is written here. So yeah, check out Ghost Rider issue 11. Here we go. Number 2 goes to Red Goblin. This is issue 1, a wonderful comic book that has to do with Norman Osborn's grandson, Normie Osborn, who becomes the Red Goblin once again, who is otherwise known as Rascal. That's right, that's what he names his symbiote. Now, if you read the pages of The Amazing Spider-Man back when Dan Slott wrote it, he introduced the Red Goblin and Normie Osborn, and him originally becoming this red symbiote. But it wasn't until Dylan Brock, who actually took a piece of symbiote from his father, who is the futuristic Venom known as Bedlam, gives him that piece of symbiote to help him stop his dad. So now that's why he has this baby symbiote by the name of Rascal. This book was great. I loved it. I love the way Normie Osborn is a little on edge, and he's trying to take care of this symbiote but be a normal kid at the same time. And it's almost like he is this kid who found a puppy and he's hiding it under his bed and keeping it from his parents, right? That's basically what this issue is like. I love the interaction between his symbiote and him, how the symbiote is like a baby, and we get to see him become this Red Goblin and try to do things out in the street that is good. He's trying to control it, and this story also has to do with like Liz and Norman and his half brother Stanley. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in this actual comic book. And again, I mentioned the pages of Amazing Spider-Man back when Dan Slott wrote it, because we get the return of the Goblin gang, and we get the return of a specific Goblin also in this comic that we have not seen since then. Can you guess who it is? I don't know, but if you did read it, you would know who I'm talking about. But here's a great page here with the symbiote and Normie inside his room, and it's just awesome. This was a great surprise. I did not know what to expect out of this book since we've been getting so many mediocre Spider-Man stories. And my number one comic book of the week this week, guys, goes to Mark Silvestri's Batman and the Joker, The Deadly Duo. This is book 4. My gosh, this book was great. I love this issue, man. It had so much action. I love the team up between the Batman and the Joker here. And we wind up getting to see a couple of different things that were going on. We get to see Batman and the Joker go on this mission about stopping this runaway train. It reminded me of the movie Speed, where it's just like there's this bomb attached to the bus and it drops below a certain speed. It's going to blow up. Well, here Batman and the Joker have to stop this, have to get so much weight off of this train or it's going to run into the train station. And this was great, seeing them work together to try to find a common ground to not kill anybody, right? And you could see Batman's way worked for a little while, but then we had to go to the Joker's way as well, which I thought was a freaking blast. The intensity of this comic was so much fun. I loved it. And also we get to see kind of the revelation of what was going on in this comic book between this scientist who created all these Jokers and how this project was supposed to cure cancer and diseases and how it made people like sick and all this other stuff. So you got to see that aspect of the story as well. Dick was in this comic and we saw Selina, and I love their interactions with each other. Selina was written so cool in this book. Even Harley, we got to see a little bit more of her dialogue. And this book, I guess, was supposed to come out maybe in 2019 because that's where you see this gravestone here, so that tells you it's like 4 years ago. And man, I really wish that the characters were written the way they were back then. I mean, it's just, you can tell this was an older story, and I miss those times. This book was so good. If you have not read this book, and I don't know who really isn't reading this book, you need to, because it's a great story. It's a great detective story. It's a great character interaction between two enemies, and the artwork is superb. So there you guys have it. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you want to see more in-depth reviews on these comics that I read this week, I'm going to leave you the video of Worthy Ones, where I cover all the #1 comics of the week, and then Spider-Man Weekly, where I talked about all the Spider books of the week. And as always, guys, keep buying, keep collecting, but most importantly, always read your comics and be safe and enjoy that Super Bowl.